Hey, it's Liberty, and today I'm going to be reviewing a book that I read recently and that I have to talk about. This book left such a deep impression on me and literally left me sobbing. So if you like historical fiction that educates you and makes you feel deep emotions at the same time, look no further. If you like this video, do give it a thumbs up. I make videos all about books, history, culture, personality, etc. So do check those out and subscribe if you would like to. So on to my review. The book in question is called Mr. Hammond and the Poetic Apprentice, and this novel is told from the perspective of the titular Mr. Hammond, Mr. Thomas Hammond, who is in 1814 a apothecary surgeon. He's living in a village near London, specifically Edmonton, which was enveloped as a part of Greater London at some point and is now very built up. Apothecary surgeons are basically the ancestors of our GPs today, and they accounted for about 80% of the medical men in the profession at the time. Proper physicians were rare, and they mostly treated only the richest people in society. Thomas Hammond once dreamed of being a surgeon at Guy's Hospital, but that dream was ruined because of an incident he was involved in as a student, and he carries that around as like a constant source of shame. His brother William did end up becoming a surgeon, and Thomas was the one who very much took over his father's apothecary practice. Thomas is the one who is dedicated to pursuing his father's contracts with people like the workhouse. He treats everyone regardless of how much money they have and is very much a sort of man of the people. Thomas has two apprentices. One is his son Edward, and the other is the son of a former patient who has died. He's now an orphan, and his name is John Keats. Now, it is indeed the poet John Keats. I don't know that much about John Keats. I didn't realise it was the John Keats. I thought it was a tribute, and I'm not sure why. I think that was my logic because I read this book on NetGalley. I requested it, and so it was a hot minute before reading the blurb and stuff and requesting it and actually getting it accepted and starting to read it. So I didn't even, when I got it, I just started reading it. I didn't go back and look at all the description and stuff. So I just, I went into it that way with a completely open mind, which was actually really good. So it was a nice surprise when it became incredibly obvious later on that it was him. So obviously this is a historical fiction based on a particular person. He is obviously real. Mr. Hammond is real as well also. There's not a lot of evidence of his life other than, that he has a practice, how old he was, who his family were, stuff like that, which is sad, but you sort of get a nice fictionalized version of him here. A big theme of this novel is about sort of legacies that we leave behind, and we have a chunk of sort of family relationships as well. Father-son, father-daughter, brother-brother, husband-wife, all sorts of family relationships that make up the sort of tension character-wise in this novel. First of all, the father-son ones are very important, very much as I was talking about legacy earlier. Thomas's son, Edward, there's tension there because he very much, as a son, looks to his father and sees his uncle as being very successful. Comparing the two of them, that creates a lot of tension between Edward and Thomas. As brothers, Thomas and his brother William have very, very different approaches, and so that makes for a very interesting relationship between Thomas and Edward, as Edward does spend bits of the novel learning from his uncle. Thomas has a great relationship with his daughter Eliza. Eliza really is a sort of complex character. It's difficult being a woman in the 19th century, but I think we got to see the different challenges and pitfalls and worries that Eliza goes through. However, the most important relationship is between Thomas and John, as the title suggests. They have very fundamentally different worldviews and approaches on practicing medicine. John is obviously a poet, so he talks a lot about the beauty of the world. He enjoys reading to patients. He's a chartrist, so he believes in things like universal male suffrage. He says to Thomas, "I feel like I'm two people, my apprentice self and once a week my literary self." He sort of goes off and has literary discussions with a friend of his. But Thomas, in the beginning of the novel, is very close-minded. He believes in his science, his recipes, his leeches, and at the start of the novel, he even resents John being his apprentice in the first place. And Thomas believes that in order for him to have a legacy, John or Edward has to sort of become a surgeon. He needs someone to take over the practice. They have a sort of rivalry as well. Edward very much represents the sort of middle-class nepo baby, and John as the sort of, working-class orphan. They often pit themselves against each other. Obviously, this is a novel about medicine and the practice of medicine in the 19th century, and Georgian England was really quite something in terms of the medical practices. I cannot believe that mercury was in general use for many conditions at the time. Bleeding as a concept is, still very much in vogue at this point. I liked that the novel didn't do a sort of binary Thomas equals good, modern, his brother William equals, antiquated and bad. Thomas is still a believer in the power of leeches, obviously, in bleeding, despite John even questioning him at times about this. William does represent, however, some of the dangerous ideas that are floating around, such as the use of mercury and all of that stuff. However, he is part of this circle of upper class scientists who do come together to have medical discussions. This is also a time where there's no anesthesia. If you develop sepsis, that's it. So the stakes are very high. You sort of see a lot of the logic as to why people believe the things that they do medically. And of course, you do end up going to Guy's at one point. Thomas does go to Guy's hospital multiple times. So we get to see in London, in this big teaching hospital, the processes, what it was like, even, Thomas comparing his experience as a student to this point in the 18 teens. We do get a good overview of what that teaching process was like, the ideas that are floating around and the progress that is slowly being made. But yeah, the stakes are very, very, very high. Obviously, we're talking about people's lives, and that is something that this novel does not let you forget, which is very important. It's quite easy we watch a lot of these medical shows, and I think episode after episode, for series upon series and series, it sort of loses its... Obviously, you do get to see the humanity of each person, each patient. There's a story, they have family members, it's emotional. It becomes almost robotic because it's like one after the other, after the other, after the other. And you really do feel the consequences of that upon medical practitioners. The village aspect of this novel was really well done. You sort of get to meet all these different characters as Thomas in his practice interacts with, obviously, some more than others, some, freak accidents that Thomas has to go and help. And also something that really struck me was birth and childbirth and pregnancy, because that is something that obviously very, very, very difficult for women to go through at any time, but particularly prior to certain things like, anesthesia and proper C-sections and all of the modern technology and things we take for granted today. Using forceps and knowing what to do. And obviously there were midwives, but Thomas gets calls when things have gone sort of out of the control of the midwives. And it's something that Eliza, particularly Thomas, thinks about a lot, his daughter going through that, and what he can do, what she can do, if there is anything to do. And it is just a huge anxiety for him. And you sort of get I was feeling very anxious at one point when I was reading it, because this is just the base level of anxiety that women would have had. It's just way, way higher than ours right now, because obviously, things do go wrong even now, but we have a certain bunch of safety nets that they didn't have, and that very traumatized me quite a lot. And also, I recently, and when I say recently, I mean this last year, couple of years, I only just realised why the chainsaw was invented. If you do not know why the chainsaw was invented, Google it. It's frankly very, very scary. But back to Thomas and John. There's a recurring theme that sort of shows up through the novel is the figure of Apollo, who's obviously the Greek god. He's the god of poetry and of medicine. And that is something that, he very much appeals to both Thomas and John, but in different ways. And he, means different things to both of them. Honestly, I would say that Thomas is just as idealistic as John is. He just sort of very much dismisses what he doesn't understand at the start of the novel. John really gets under Thomas's skin and makes him sort of question things, question his ideas, why he thinks the way that he does, why he lives the way that he does, and why he practices medicine the way that he does. They definitely butt heads a lot, and they really challenge each other throughout the novel, and their dynamic and their relationship was really what I was invested in, because let's face it, they do develop a very familial bond. They both go through things at various points of the novel where they are there for each other. And of course, they're, teacher and student. And it's just very, very heartwarming to read. And throughout the turbulence of all of the relationships that are in this novel. You know, there's turbulence in every relationship. Theirs is the one that really sort of, that bond really sticks out to you a lot and makes you feel things. It's very sad that like the role of compassion in medical care is something that is still variable today, but there are different ways to identify with patients, to sort of treat them well. You know, this novel discusses suffering a lot, and you know, what to do in the face of suffering. How does one cope? Is there anything, you know, we can do as medical professionals, friends, family? You know, John's obsession with finding beauty in the world is sort of how he copes personally, which is obviously something that Thomas struggles to do. And Thomas is a doer. He, you know, busies himself. He focuses on results, things like that. This book is very much a love letter to the local GP who knows all their patients, who is connected to them, knows their histories off by heart, and so can diagnose and, you know, work things out in a second. While it may seem to be less glamorous than being a hotshot surgeon, it is just as important. Grey's Anatomy may be sexy, but Doc Martin is just as powerful. If you don't know either of these shows, check them out, especially Doc Martin. He is a surgeon who develops a sort of fear of blood, so he ends up moving from London to Cornwall to this like little village to be a GP, and it's so good. His social skills aren't great. He's very direct and deadpan and straight to the point and rubs people up the wrong way, but he's a fantastic doctor. And again, it's something where like there are all these characters in the village that are all real different from each other. Anyway, that was a tangent, but it's sort of like this book gave me similar vibes to Doc Martin. People are complicated, you know, let's not put each other into boxes or put yourself into boxes. Let's learn from each other, care about each other. It's a hard world out there. And don't get into the medical profession if you don't want to be there, or if you can't be compassionate and you don't have that drive to help people. It becomes very obvious, not just to you, but to your patients as well. In terms of like what I would improve or change, there were some edits here and there that I would make, and John's ideals are very pressed to be different from Thomas's at the start, where I feel like I got the message. I didn't really need that so much. Thomas spends a lot of time at the beginning of the novel not being able to imagine things. Cut out a couple of those in the first few chapters anyway. In terms of the impact of this novel, boy, did it have a huge impact on me. The first 3 or 4 chapters maybe I was sort of, you know, bumbling along. I was thinking, okay, this is going to be a good read, you know, this is going to be all right. And boy, did this novel hit me in the face. Like I didn't realize it. Every chapter I was being slowly pulled into this story, into these characters, to their relationship. And by the time I reached the end, I was so invested in them that I was like sobbing for like the whole like last couple chapters. I was on the beach and I was on the beach and I was lying down with my ebook on my phone, and I had glasses on and I was just like sobbing, and I'm reaching for my tissue like surreptitiously to try and not advertise the fact that I was just weeping on the beach. But it really affected me in a profound way. I couldn't stop thinking about it for days, and like I rarely make individual videos on books, and I wanted to for this. If you like historical fiction, if you are interested in poetry or medicine, or you just love a good family story, or, you know, sort of village vibes, then definitely pick this up. But you have to be ready. It is emotional and it is beautiful. It actually came out on April the 28th. So thank you to Stephanie and to Matador for approving my NetGalley request. I literally cannot express how this book made me feel. I tried to make what I was saying sort of not very spoilery, so forgive me if it sounds quite vague, but I kind of wanted to get across, you know, some of the themes, some of the conflict, some of the relationships, so that you'll just, you know, go and read it for yourself, because I don't know, I just really bonded with these characters, and I hope other people can find this book and who are meant to, and will find that joy and love for themselves. Thank you for watching. I hope that was coherent, and if you liked it, do give it a thumbs up, you know, subscribe to hear more from me. And yeah, if this book sounds like it's in any way your thing, then you will not regret it. And let me know what books have made you sob recently, because I'm curious. It's currently really hot, so I'm probably going to go and have some ice cream now. Happy reading.